You know that feeling where you hear all this financial advice, maybe online or from experts, and it just feels like it's, well, not for you.
Yeah, like it's aimed at someone with a totally different starting point, maybe a lot more income or fewer complications.
Exactly. Like they're speaking another language sometimes with
Yeah.
strategies that just seem miles away from where you are right now.
Mhm.
So if that sounds familiar, well, you're definitely in the right place for this deep dive.
Absolutely. We're really skipping the abstract theories today. Our whole focus is on actual practical things you can do, like right now.
Regardless of your current situation.
Exactly. Things just start building, a better financial path forward.
Yeah, our mission here is really to cut through all that noise, all the jargon, and pull out those really practical, encouraging first steps.
Things that feel doable.
Right. We want to basically hand you some tools so you can start feeling more in control without feeling like buried under complexity or completely unrealistic goals.
And it's quite revealing when you actually look at the data. Our source has highlighted something pretty stark.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, over half the people in Canada and the US, like more than 55%, they have less than $1,000 saved up.
Wow. Less than a grand.
Mm-hmm. And, that really drives home the point that building that solid financial foundation isn't just about how much money you make.
Right. It's more fundamental than that.
It really is. It's about having the right systems, the right habits in place to actually manage what you do have.
Okay, so let's dive right in then. One of maybe the most powerful starting points, this idea of small, consistent wins, specifically making savings automatic.
Yeah, this was great. And what's really interesting here is the psychology behind it. It's not only about the dollars adding up, though obviously that's good too. Sure. But the real power, of setting up even a small automatic transfer every week, let's say just $10 to a separate savings account,
Okay.
is that it just happens. It takes the decision-making burden off your shoulders week after week.
Ah, so it becomes effortless, like a habit that builds itself almost.
Pretty much,
Yeah.
almost subconsciously. And yeah, that small amount, $10 a week, it actually turns into $520 over a whole year.
Yeah.
Not bad for something you didn't really have to think about.
Right, exactly. And like you said, it's more than just the cash itself, isn't it? It's seeing that little bit actually grow consistently. That gives you a real tangible sense of, hey, I'm actually doing this.
Precisely. It builds that confidence, that momentum. It's proof to yourself that you can save money.
Yeah.
And our sources, they actually throw down a bit of a challenge here. They say, take action right away. Like today,
Okay, what's the challenge?
set up an automatic transfer, even if it feels ridiculously small, like just $5.
Yeah.
Just do it today.
Just $5 to start.
Yeah. It's that first step, that commitment to the process.
Mhm.
That's what's really crucial here, getting started.
Okay, I like that. Very actionable. So, all right, you've got that little bit trickling into savings automatically. Now, where do we find maybe a bit more fuel for that financial engine? Mm-hmm.
Which I guess leads us to looking at where the money's actually going right now.
Right.
Reviewing expenses. But the key seems to be doing it with curiosity,
Hmm.
not judgment.
That's such an important distinction because, how do you get a clear, honest look at your spending without just feeling overwhelmed or, worse, guilty about it?
Yeah, that's the tricky part.
So the suggestion from the sources is pretty straightforward. Just look back over, say, the last 3 months of your spending. Bank statements, credit card statements.
Okay, 3 months.
Yeah. And think of it like being a detective. You're just looking for clues, identifying those silent leaks.
Silent leaks. I like that term.
Yeah, those recurring costs that might be sort of draining your funds without you even really noticing it anymore. They just become background noise.
Right, right. It's not about beating yourself up over every latte, is it? It's more about finding those regular outflows that maybe aren't adding much value anymore. Exactly. And there's a really good little story in our sources about this. Someone found they were saving over $1,000 a year just by canceling like 3 monthly subscriptions.
$1,000 just from subscription.
Yeah. Things they'd completely forgotten they were even paying for. It added up to like $85 a month just vanishing.
Wow, $85 a month. That's significant. That's like a phone bill or more.
Right. And when you connect that back, those seemingly small amounts,
Mm-hmm.
they really do add up. They compound.
Mm-hmm.
So the sources suggest taking very concrete steps, like actually go through your statements, find those unused subscriptions, and cancel them. Or maybe look into switching to a cheaper phone plan if that's an option.
And then that money you've found, essentially.
Exactly. It's freed up. You can then Consciously decide where it goes, maybe boost that automatic savings transfer, or use it to start tackling debt.
Okay, debt. Let's talk about that because that can feel like such a heavy weight for so many people.
Oh, absolutely.
It often feels like you're just stuck on a treadmill, right? Making those minimum payments month after month and the balance barely seems to budge.
It's a really common feeling. But what's quite encouraging here from the source material is this idea that even really small extra payments can give you significant leverage over time.
Leverage. How so?
Well, the sources specifically highlight the impact of adding just, say, an extra $25 or even $50 a month
Okay.
to the credit card that has the highest interest rate, the most expensive debt you have.
Ah, targeting the highest interest one first. The debt avalanche method, basically.
Exactly. By focusing your extra firepower there, you're essentially stopping that debt from growing quite as fast because you're hitting the principal harder against that high interest.
Right.
And that saves you more money on interest in the long run,
Mm.
potentially, shaving years off how long it takes to pay back.
Years just from an extra 25 or $50.
It can make a surprising difference over the life of the loan, yeah. The goal isn't like instant debt freedom overnight. That's usually not realistic.
No, of course not.
It's about setting up that pattern of consistent progress, actively working to break free from just making minimum payments. Every little bit extra you throw at that high interest debt, it speeds things up and, importantly, gives you back a bit more control.
Yeah, that feeling of control is huge.
Totally. And again, there's a very practical action item suggested.
Okay.
Make one small extra payment towards your highest interest debt this month, even if it's only $10.
It's just $10 again.
Just $10. It's about starting that shift, creating that momentum and seeing, okay, I paid a little bit more than the minimum. It's a small win.
Okay, that makes sense. So, all right, we're building up some savings, hopefully plugging some of those spending leaks and starting to chip away more aggressively at debt. What about the next step? The
Yeah.
one that often feels even more intimidating for people. Investing.
Ah, yes, investing. It's interesting how much mystery seems to surround it, isn't it?
Definitely. Like
Yeah.
you need a finance degree or a pile of cash just to get started.
Right. That's a super common perception, that you need significant capital or, some kind of specialized knowledge. But the reality, according to our sources, is you can actually begin with surprisingly small amounts.
Okay.
The sources mention specific types of accounts, depending on where you live, like the TFSA in Canada, or maybe a Roth IRA, or even just a basic brokerage account in the U.S.
Right, those tax advantaged or standard accounts?
Yeah, they offer different benefits, often tax advantages, and they're basically designed to help regular people grow their money over time.
And you don't need to suddenly become Warren Buffett overnight, I take it.
No, definitely not. The recommendation is actually to start really simple. Think about low-cost, exchange-traded funds, ETFs.
ETFs, right. Those are like baskets of stocks or bonds.
Exactly. They hold a whole bunch of different investments bundled together, which automatically helps spread out your risk. You're not putting all your eggs in one company's basket.
And low cost just means the fees for managing that basket are minimal.
Precisely. So good starting points could be ETFs that track a really broad market index, like the S&P 500 in the U.S., or maybe balanced index funds that hold a mix of stocks and bonds. Simple, diversified, low fees.
Okay.
And just to sort of illustrate the potential power here, even with small amounts, the sources give this example, investing just $50 a month.
$50 a month into, say, one of those ETFs.
Yeah. Over a period of 10 years, assuming, an average historical market return of around maybe 8% a year.
Which isn't guaranteed, of course.
Oh, absolutely not guaranteed. Markets go up and down. But based on historical averages, that $50 a month could potentially grow to around $9,000 over that decade.
$9,000 from 50 a month. That's pretty substantial, actually.
It is. Now,
Yeah.
like the source points out, that might not be, retire tomorrow money immediately, but it's a really significant foundation. And maybe even more importantly, it gets you in the habit of investing.
Yeah.
The key insight here really is that starting early, even small, and just learning as you go along, that's way more impactful in the long run than waiting until you feel like you have a huge amount to invest or know everything.
Getting started is the key. Learning by doing.
Exactly.
Okay, this final point feels a little different, maybe less about specific numbers, but the sources say it's incredibly important for your overall financial health, actually opening up and, well, talking about money.
This is a big one. And immediately brings up a question, doesn't it? Like, why is it so difficult for so many of us to just talk about finances openly?
Yeah, it's often seen as taboo or, I don't know, impolite.
Right. There's this widespread discomfort, but the sources really emphasize how that silence, that reluctance to talk, can actually hold us back financially. We kind of operate in these little vacuums, assuming maybe our situation is unique or even something to be, like, ashamed of.
Yeah, that makes sense. You feel alone with it.
Totally.
Hmm.
But breaking through that silence, even a little bit, can be surprisingly powerful.
How so? What kind of conversations are we talking about?
Well, the sources suggest some really practical starting points.
Hmm.
It doesn't have to be intense. Maybe asking friends, hey, what budgeting apps do you use? Any you like?
Okay, simple enough.
Or maybe chatting with colleagues, if it feels appropriate, about how they approached paying down debt or their first steps into investing. Or
Hmm.
even just having a really honest, gentle conversation with your partner about how you feel about money, what your hopes or worries are. Not necessarily diving into spreadsheets right away, but just sharing perspective.
So less about numbers, more about experiences and feelings initially.
It can be. And if you connect this back, these kinds of conversations can, well, they can unlock really helpful insights. Maybe someone recommends a tool you didn't know about, or
Hmm.
shares a strategy that worked for them.
Yeah, or just makes you feel less alone.
Exactly. It creates a sense of community and support. You might realize, oh, other people worry about this too. Or, okay, that person figured out a way through a similar challenge. It normalizes it.
Right.
So the sources, again, have a little challenge here. Try to initiate just one conversation about money this week. Doesn't have to be huge, just one small step. You might honestly be surprised by the value you get from it.
One conversation. Okay. So just to kind of wrap things up and bring it all together, those 5 key, small, actionable financial wins we've explored today were: first, automate your savings, even if it's just a tiny amount to start.
Yep. Get that habit going.
Second, take a curious, non-judgmental look at your spending over the last few months. Find those silent leaks.
See where the money's actually going.
Third, start tackling high-interest debt with small, consistent extra payments. Even just $10 or $20 makes a difference over time.
Chip away at it.
Fourth, dip your toes into investing. Start small with low-cost, diversified options like ETFs. Don't wait for perfection.
Just get started. Learn as you go.
And finally, fifth, break the silence. Make an effort to start talking about money, even in small ways, with people you trust.
Yeah, open up those lines of communication. And it's just so crucial to remember, this whole process isn't about achieving financial perfection overnight. That's not the goal.
Right, it's a journey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Learning, adjusting, maybe messing up sometimes, that's all part of it. The real key is just maintaining that consistency with these small, doable steps. Keep showing up for your finances.
And the really encouraging thing, the big takeaway here, is that these small wins, these consistent little efforts, they genuinely do compound over time. What feels like a minor tweak today can actually lead to some pretty significant positive changes for your future self, for your future financial well-being.
Absolutely. Which actually leads to maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to
Okay.
consider.
Yeah.
Just think about the person you'll be in, say, 5 years, or 10 years, or even 20 years down the road. How might these small, consistent financial decisions you're starting to make today, how might they shape their opportunities, their choices, their overall security?